Go ahead, sir.
It is 9 o'clock. I will call the March 6th Board of Wright County Commissioners to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. And Charlie, please put your coat on.
I did.
Oh, thank you. You have your socks on?
I'll check.
Okay. Welcome, Lee, back from your vacation of jury duty. Glad to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Alrighty. Minutes from Board of February 27th.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Is there any discussions, changes, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The agenda. I understand we have one thing to add to the agenda.
That is correct. Auditor Hilo will speak to
Morning, Board. I was going to wait for the consent agenda. I'm going to ask you to put on the consent agenda, approve the waiver of the 30-day notice for Annandale TIF District. In your packet, you should have had the copy of it. By statute, they're supposed to give us 30-day notice. I believe we have had proper time to look at this, so I'm just waiving the 30-day notice to us.
So we'll put that on letter I for consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda with the added letter, or added item for the TIF item for the City of Annandale.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome regarding approval of the agenda with the added additions. Is there any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody would like to have removed for further discussions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda with the addition of item I as well.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Oh. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mike.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Potter as a second, just by a hair's breadth. Is there any discussions, concerns? Just note that to put on your calendar April 17th for the Boy and Girl Day, County Boy Girl Day. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Mr. Bob Hebelock.
Hey, good morning, Board. Matt Detchen in my office, he's been working with Ron Ringquist on our viewers. Just as a reminder, we have several ditch systems that have been ordered for redetermination. One of Ron's viewers is ill again, so we're looking to replace one of the members of his team. Ron's now looking at having two teams out here to help expedite our redeterminations. So we're looking to add Joe Jacobs as an alternate on Ron's viewing team. So asking you to approve that substitution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the replacement hire of Joel Jacobs as per Bob's.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Burrell. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. 903, Mr. Virgil Hawkins, our County Highway Engineer.
Morning, Chairman Dodden and Board of Commissioners. I have three items today for your consideration. The first one is to approve resolution of final acceptance for the CASA 35 and 3 and 35 and 6 rural intersection warning systems. Authorized final payment in the amount of $12,508.83.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the CASA 35.8, 35.6 rural intersection warning system.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussion?
Just those are, oh, excuse me, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I'm just there Sundays. They're really nice. It's such an improvement, so I'm glad to have them working.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I was coming back from St. Cloud and went by the one at Rassett's store there, and it was nice to see working again.
Good, yeah, we're glad they're up
Yeah.
and working.
Yeah.
Any other discussions? Resolution? Commissioner Vetch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution carries unanimous.
Thank you. The next item is to approve resolution and final acceptance for the Highway 3 reconstruction project and authorize final payment in the amount of $49,116.36.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussions? Resolution, Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous.
Thank you. The last item this morning is I'd like to set a transportation committee of the whole meeting to discuss a few different transportation-related items. And I have a proposed agenda in the board action request. Briarwood Avenue traffic study proposals, receive those back. Go over the marked crosswalk policy update and review some highway maintenance planning items, and then just review the 5-year plan update.
Is it possible to add something else to this?
It is right now, we sure can.
Item 5, I'd like to have discussions regarding the sales tax. Just on how it's all laying out and possible other options regarding County 19 and St. Michael, possibly using some of it for part of the highway building, just some conversations.
Different options within the sales tax option itself.
Yep.
Just to refresh us and,
Yep.
Sure.
yeah.
Is there anybody else, would anything else like added to the highway
Should do it.
transportation? All right.
That should be a fairly long meeting.
Yeah.
Virgil, did you have a date that you were?
Well, I have some
It's on the bottom.
suggested dates, Monday, March 12th, or Wednesday, March 14th, or the following week, Tuesday, March 20th, or Wednesday, March 21st, whatever
I know
works best for the board.
I won't be here on the 21st, so, one of the other dates?
Does it have to be a Monday?
No.
It doesn't
He's got
have to
two
be.
He's got a Wednesday and a Tuesday.
Is it,
Oh, there, okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
On the 14th, we got a committee day
Correct, that morning would be committee day.
morning, so we could have it in the afternoon.
Sure.
That same day.
Does that work for everybody?
The 14th?
Yep.
You want to say 1 o'clock? Because if
I have a one watershed, one plan policy meeting that day.
Okay.
What time in the afternoon? I should be able to be back by 1 or 1:30.
Well, we could do 1:30.
we could
Why
do
don't we do
1:30.
1:30?
1:30? Okay.
If I'm a little late, just, no big deal either.
Yeah.
Just
no-
make all the
no-
big
no problem.
decisions before you come.
Remember, I've done that before. I remember I came from Litchfield out and I was,
Yep. So 1:30?
but 1:30 I should be fine.
On Wednesday, March 14th.
We'll have it at the highway building.
Yep.
And everything in District 5 we'll do early, before Charlie gets there.
Yep.
Well, let's see if we can get as many people as last time. We've really been packing in the audience on your
We did pack them in.
Transportation Committee of the Holes lately.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set March 14th at 1:30 for committee of the whole to discuss transportation issues.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, so
Yes.
Virgil, is the City of Monticello going to come out there to talk about the funding for the study on Briarwood then, or?
Yes, we'll
Okay.
invite them to be
Invite them
there as
out.
well as the township
Perfect.
and parks.
Any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
that was a fast meeting.
Hey, we've got committee yet.
Let's slow it down now.
We're on a roll.
Keep her going.
Committee minutes. Personnel, employee relations, Commissioner Hewsome.
Thank you. The Personnel Employee Relations Committee met on February 27th, 2018. Members present, Hewsome DeLayden, Sean Johnson, also Todd Hoffman, Shauna Othman, Christine Partlow, Bob Hevola, Tammy Vaith, and Lindsay Meyer. And the first item was request to increase the Office Tech 2 full-time position by 1. And this is in the Sheriff's Office. Chief Deputy Todd Hoffman provided the Personnel Committee with the background information about this. Historically, this is mostly relating to issuing the permit to carry permits. And historically, these duties have been performed by an administrative deputy who's also responsible for handling the front counter walk-ups. And over time, this position has evolved into managing the gun permits. Right now, that administrative deputy is spending about 95% of his time managing the gun permitting process. And after looking at that, they felt that an Office Tech 2 position would be able to assume a number of the job duties that the license officer would be doing, and they still need an officer to do the final approval process. Shauna Othman reported that this position is levy neutral, and the personnel expenses would be paid through the county's gun permit process. There's been a lot of public interest in obtaining gun permits, and particularly after an incident, they really increased. But even without that, it might be a little irregular as far as how many per day, but they typically average 20 to 25 applications every couple of days, so it's pretty significant. And the county also increased the permit to carry fee. So now the fee is $75, and this is separate then from if they take classes and that kind of thing. So last year, the gun permit revenue for the county was $233,190. And they've researched what other sheriff's departments have done and found that most agencies have civilian staff managing the gun permitting process and then have a licensed officer conduct the final review. Commissioner DeLayden asked what happens to the money, and Othman said that they're statutorily required to hold onto the funds for any potential legal expenses that may occur. And the recommendation for that is proceed with hiring one Office Tech 2 position in the Sheriff's Office.
Just point of clarification, and I didn't hear you say it, but the permit to carry, there's a fee, but the permit to purchase, there is no fee. But we are required to provide that within 7 days, if I remember correctly. So
thank you.
Just to clarify it so that you know that we're only receiving money for permits to carry.
Yep. Do you have a question?
Well, I just like, if for some future litigation, I mean, so this money is just gonna sit there and grow and grow and grow and grow?
Well, we can use it to pay for this position.
Right, and then we need to maintain some in this fund anyway.
Because other counties have lowered that down. They saw that they're making such a huge amount of money, they've lowered it, and we raised ours, or this is still the same?
No, well,
It's
the permit to
$75.
carry is $75,
Yeah,
right?
and that's,
Let's hear from Chief Deputy.
Yeah.
He can clarify that for you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I believe it was last year, we did raise our fees up to about what everyone else is charging right now. I think it's $75. We will monitor that over the years, but we have to keep that balance at a what we feel is a good balance, not only for the county, if the county were to be sued for a denial of permit, but it also covers expenses associated with each permit that we give someone, we have to print out the hard cards, we have to have the printers, we have to have the computers, and the employee time. So that's what what the fees cover.
It's, you know, yeah, and I appreciate that, Chief Deputy, because at some point, though, you know, we're getting better and better. We know what our expenses, what our income and our outgo are, and maybe we can adjust that down the road.
Correct. It's not a moneymaker for the sheriff's office. We are very cognizant of the fact that we wanted to maintain. We're not looking at, you know,
Building a big fund.
millions of dollars in here. We're well below that.
I was just wondering if there's an end to it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right. The second item was a special deputy park ranger job description, and you can review that. This has been ongoing for a few months as they've developed this position, and we're seeking. Chief Deputy Hoffman stated the county is seeking to create one full-time special deputy park ranger position and seasonal position description. They're currently planning on having 5 seasonal special deputy park ranger employees during the spring, summer, and fall. And the Parks Department currently has $20,000 budgeted in 2018 that will be used to offset the cost for the seasonal special deputy park ranger positions. Sheriff's Office will also hire 1 full-time special deputy park ranger position. This would not be a licensed peace officer, and the salary range would be between $19.44 and $27.22 per hour. It's a grade 8 position. Adding these new positions is not just in response to the AIS issue, and they're just a point of correction. In the first line on that page, it's AAIS, and then the second to the last sentence, it's AISS, and it's just AIS. But
Stutter.
not just in response to the AIS issue, but also because there's big events at Bertram Chain of Lakes and other things, and it's good to have staff on site. The Chief Deputy also recommended that the seasonal employees previously employed in the Parks Department be transferred to the Sheriff's Office, and a full-time Special Deputy Park Ranger be added. This position would serve as a shift lead for the seasonal employees, and there's definitely enough work for that person to do. So the recommendation is proceed with hiring a full-time Special Deputy Park Ranger position. The third item was reclassification of Assistant Finance Director to Business Manager, and this came request from Auditor Treasurer Bob Hewala. And the position of the Assistant Finance Director is being vacated, and he felt it's a good time to go over the job description and to make any necessary changes. We do have the upcoming compensatory and classification study happening soon, and so he asked Assistant Finance Director Lindsay Meyer to review the current job description and make notes, and that is also included in the packet. Stated for the record that Lindsay Meyer has submitted her resignation and be moving to another position in the private sector. In reviewing the 2015 job description, Hewala recommended that the Assistant Finance Director position be changed to Business Manager position, and commented that all the check marks in the Business Manager job description are currently in the Assistant Finance Director job description. And we also, let's see, going to the right page here. There's components of the assistant job description that don't line up verbatim. So we did get a copy of that also. We had quite the discussion, and we both, Mark and I, agreed that with the timing of the compensation classification study, that a lot of the jobs are going to be looked at, and there are some problems with this position being vacated, advancing the ERP and the FR without somebody that can manage the proposed changes. But anyway, we, after a lot of discussion and concern about the fairness across the board, we decided that this item be forwarded to the county board for further discussion. So you can read all the notes on it. And we also, there was another component about the...
Yeah, about no more
requests coming
requests
forward.
changing forward until the classic comp is done.
It's really difficult. We believed, we couldn't really make the decision, the two of us, about changing a job description at this point. So we made the recommendation to bring it to the full board.
And there's no guarantee that if we changed it right now that we could keep Lindsay around anyway, which is one of the things that they were trying to accomplish.
Exactly. So it's the position, not the person. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I will move approval of the minutes and the recommendations.
Let's have some further discussions regarding that last one.
I'll second it first.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, first question, was it part of that recommendation to close any further job classifications until the common class study is done? Is that part of the recommendations of that?
That was our suggestion.
The suggestion, okay.
But again, because of all this is, where this is all going, that we felt the full board should make that decision and not just two people.
We need to have that discussion.
And there are people out here that have some discussions and concerns that they would like to bring forward too, I believe.
Mr. Chair, one of two items, is this something better that we do at an individual meeting if we're just do a personnel committee of the whole, or do you want to discuss it all now? Depends on how many items we're going to get into here. That's the question that I have before we get arm deep in this issue.
Well, not sure that we need to get into lots of issues, but I'd like to hear from Coordinator Kelly. He was not at that meeting because he was doing his civic duty.
Yeah.
That'll learn you.
Because they were so impressed with him the first time that they wanted him a second time.
He's going to be a professional juror.
Yeah, I think so. All the money he'll make.
Career I didn't anticipate. Yes, I did read the minutes, did talk with Sean, but I think Sean hit at the meeting what I'm told and discussing with him along the lines of with my concerns. We're on the cusp of doing a study. For one, certainly there are discussions that need to be had about the way compensation and classifications are at this county. We're going to have to make a lot of decisions relative to market and how we do our pay systems in general. It's very early in that process. I also caution the board that we need to be consistent and fair throughout the organization. If we are going to be making any adjustments to compensation, we need to have a good background and consistent criteria why we're doing so. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit of the Wild West. I know there are individuals throughout the county that have expressed to me they have concerns with either where they are within the compensation schedule or the classification rankings, and I trust through the process of a classification and compensation study that'll flesh that out. I'm also concerned if we continue to have reclasses prior to the study, you're going to have a lot of moving parts that may stay the same, may change. There's no guarantees how that will come out of the study, and is it work that will be undone or have to be redone. So again, I'm whatever the board decides to do, but those are some of my concerns.
One of the things that I don't think you highlighted is that currently we have a number of managers that are being paid less than the people they're supervising.
And this is a case where it would be
Even worse.
it already is and would be more. So there's.
And we just can't, especially with the study right here on the edge, it's difficult to do this.
The only question that, Mr. Chair, that I'm worried about is that we're going to continue this problem is that we constantly are hiring people 4, 10, 12% above starting pay grade, and a lot of times that puts us in that near or potential leapfrogging issue. And that, I mean, we couldn't get this comp and class study done, because unfortunately it wasn't done right, obviously, the first time that we're in this situation.
Well, one of the things that I had asked Sean about, and is that going forward, that we look at that issue. I mean, we can hire somebody at a higher level, but you're right, it has a detriment to existing employees. It's not fair. I don't like it. So we need to figure that out, and I'd ask Sean to come up with a methodology that we can adjust that somehow in the future. You know, right now we have no way in our handbook to be able to do that.
I agree.
And that's why with this study, that's something else that we need to do.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other part is we've done some reorganizations in a couple other departments and created business managers that didn't exist before. And they went through the whole litany of everything and they both made sense. Okay, so this is just another department where it actually makes sense to do it. You've got two other departments you've already changed that. This just didn't have the timing earlier like the other ones, the unfortunate timing of this, but it still is an important issue to deal with because you got to make sure they're doing something that's actually germane to what their job is. You know, and it's sad it came up here because if it would come up a year or two ago, it'd have been approved like the other two departments had a year or two ago.
Well, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, the duties don't really fit under what the other business managers are doing though. So it's a title, but it would probably end up, you know, being changed back to really reflect the duties that they're doing. So, yeah, so those are that's parts of the larger discussion that we need to have. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know if do you want to set a committee of the whole, a personnel committee of the whole to have
Well, I think,
this out, or
we'll be discussing that,
Okay.
I think, once we come up with the comp and class study.
Okay.
Commissioner Potter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner Hewson, we could debate this both sides of the aisle, and either one doesn't make either one wrong.
Right.
It's just a different point of view how you
Right.
look at it. What
Yep.
is the duty of a business manager
Right.
versus the rest of them?
Yep.
I mean, we thought in a couple departments that the business manager actually made sense to do it.
Oh, sure it did.
You know, and I don't see much difference in this case because of all the duties that this person has to deal with. It actually more matches a business manager model, in my opinion. And I'm just one opinion up here. So even though the timing is sad that it's here, if that had been 2 years ago, it had probably gone through the process like the other departments and been blessed. But I prefer to have a committee of the whole on this, just on these issues, and take under consideration not only this, but the leapfrogging and everything else that we're experiencing. How do we want to get a handle on this going forward to make sure we're not bogged down with this all the time?
Jamie, you had a comment?
That's not so much on the businessman.
Better go up there. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My only concern is not on the business manager side of it, but on the moratorium on reclassifications. Just as someone stated, there's so many moving parts, and my concern would be twofold. One would be we don't know how long the class and comp study is going to take. The last time it got drawn out a lot longer than we thought. And then I think after it's done, there might also be a disinclination to look at reclassifying because we just had a comp class study. So, and I think just with a department as large as mine, there's just so many moving parts that a lot of times it just plain makes sense. And so I definitely think we should consider that it's going on and only bring things forward. But I mean, I would hate to see a total moratorium on making any kind of reclassifications during that period of time. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I struggle with this because I agree with the side that, you know, we want to let the process play out, but there's part of me that also looks at that it hasn't been that we haven't addressed these issues as time's gone on over the last...
Many times.
Many times. And I look at it, we're going to dog ourselves immensely over the 9 to 12 months till this is done in some of these key positions. Because, I mean, I look through it and I go, you know what, the duties may not match, but the responsibilities are equal, if not greater, in this situation. That's the reason it's like, I struggle back and forth. Do you hold off, and what's the compromise to the county if we don't change this and we can't get a strong candidate in this position? Do we wait and hire somebody, but then we'll run into the issue of leapfrogging if if you end up having to hire somebody above.
We already
And that's where then you have to look at. Exactly, and that's the reason we have to look, I look at this whole area there that we have to almost address it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue. But you know, if you deny one department this, and then you give your approval to another, that's not fair either.
Correct.
And so that's what I struggle with, and that's happened.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
another one I'm going to bring up here is we have one department that has their chief deputy tied to the elected official salary. You're going to do it for one, you do it for all, or you do it for none.
And that's-
Again, that's that fairness
Yeah,
thing we're talking about.
And that's the other thing we discussed.
You know, because I think these are enough items for us to do a personnel committee of the whole to try to get some kind of consensus which direction we want to go. I think this is imperative at the beginning of this study to make sure we're got these, we know, instead of getting three-quarters of the way
Right.
through it and say, oh, by the way, did you do this or that?
Yeah.
How about this? Since we're doing interviews this afternoon regarding the company we're going to hire, and then once we determine who that's going to be, we have to have a kickoff meeting anyway to kind of set some ground
Yep,
rules.
we do.
And maybe at that time, because theoretically they should be the experts, then maybe they can help us work through some of these in that partial
Up front.
process
Agreed.
while we're doing it.
Yep.
How's that sound?
Mr. Chair, is that first kickoff meeting a closed session?
Well,
And could we tie this into a closed session? That might need Brian's approval.
the challenge will be that, with union environment we operate in, any changes to the terms or condition of employment, i.e. wages and our standards of how we do promotions internally, if it relates to a union, will have to be negotiated. So we can certainly talk in general concepts if you were to do an open session, but I was envisioning that upon the selection of a class and comp consultant, that we would have a closed session with the board, and there would be a series of discussions, compensation, philosophy, and this being part of that would have to be part of that discussion. I don't know how it could
Well, this
not
sort of
be.
stuff would be kind of open policy, and then some of the other stuff would be closed.
You could. You could certainly do an open meeting and get input from the department heads or any staff that.
We don't care about that.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
would it be wise for us to ask Brian what his thoughts are, what part we can close and still meet the statutes and the laws without?
I need to know more about, exactly what we can talk about. I think Lee's advice is sound, what I'm hearing.
Okay. So you want to have it with Lee and Brian to find out if you're going to close something, what the parameters are to close that to still meet the legal definition?
So we might have to have it just open part and closed part. And
So then why don't we have Brian and Lee come up with something and bring it back to the board next week to set a meeting date?
Fair enough.
Is that fair with
Are
everybody?
you clear on what we want to discuss then, there, Lee? As far as we want to discuss the job classifications, I'm guessing within the auditor treasurer's office is what we wanted to talk about?
Minutes and
Yes, I defer to the board.
Is that what
Are we
Michael's?
looking
I was-
across
I
the
was-
county, or are we
that's-
looking at a specific
Yep.
department or
There's
departments?
a lot of things to deal with.
Yeah, well, or do you want to talk about them in job classifications in general? Or you want to address just the one?
There's more than
No,
one.
we'd have to
There's
do-
more
we'd
than
have
one
to do
item.
it.
There's a whole lot of.
We can't just do it for one.
We can't just do, okay, so we want to address, that's fine. I mean, I didn't know if you were just talking about the one at hand, so.
But like I said, we'll be having experts on staff hopefully to help us, what have they done with other counties?
Right.
During that process? What kind of mess are we gonna make?
Agreed,
So,
Mr. Chair. I can't believe we're the only county that's gone through this. I think somebody else has.
No, there's 87 of us.
so, first off, we have a motion to accept the minutes and the recommendation, and there was no recommendation for this last one, other than for the board to discuss. So let's get through with this one, and then we'll make then I'll have somebody make a motion regarding setting up another discussion in the future.
Sure. Do we want to vote on it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
these are
I just
So-
have one last question on
Yeah.
it, though. Bob, are you going to post this position, or are you going to wait till after we hash this out at some meeting regarding filling this position? I was just curious on what your play on that end is.
I wish I had that crystal ball. I wish I knew what our current employee would feel. This is a critical position. We have the audit that's going to be wrapped up here in 2 months. I really would like to get this person on board. So if it isn't my current employee, I'd like to advertise and get one selected that I can get in here.
I don't think he has a choice.
That's it. Just curious. Okay.
Chief Deputy, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just follow up on Commissioner Burrell's question on the fee schedule for a permit to carry. That is $100 for a brand-new permit to carry. 75 for renewal. And then a further clarification on our park ranger position. This is a non-union position. I'm asking that this position be treated similarly to other uniformed positions within the sheriff's office as far as uniforms go. I just did a quick calculation before I came over here, and I forgot to add initial uniform for that full-time position is going to be about $1,700, just shy of $1,800. So there was no direct language within that discussion about the uniforming of this position, but again, it is a uniform position, but it's outside of a CBA. And typically what the county has done with that in the past is it follows this roughly the same CBA language as another uniform position. So I don't know if Lee's office.
So this is a non-union position?
Yes.
It's a non-union position. It did.
The supervisor, so that's, I mean, supervisors generally are non-union, correct?
No, that's not.
Yeah, this is not a supervisory position.
Oh, I
It's
thought it
just-
was,
no.
we're supervising,
Seasonal part-time,
they're
right?
supervising the seasonal part-time, but not
Yeah,
classified as a supervisor.
I would call him a shift lead.
Okay.
How come this is a non-union position then?
That's just what it came back for a recommendation. I think HR Director Johnson was in contact with our
consultant.
attorneys, consultants, and it wasn't quite in the deputies CBA, and it really wasn't in the corrections. It was kind of a mix of both.
No man land?
So,
Standalone position?
So I would ask that the uniform allowance, at least for that full-time position, be similar to the licensed deputy, because they have to have, the only difference that this position won't have is a gun and holster. So you're talking about $100 to $150, depending on what type of a holster difference. They're still gonna have jackets, hats, boots, pants, not gun belt, duty belt, that type of thing, so.
Would they have a taser? Or pepper spray or?
Yes, pepper spray, handcuffs. Even though they're not arresting, they still teach them defensive tactics, which would include handcuffing, because they're not going to have the powers to arrest, but we have to give them the tools to defend themselves. The taser is still open to discussion. We're looking at other agencies, what they're doing, and it's still open to discussion. So.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Potter?
In this position, Chief Deputy, it was just assumed that we were going to pay for the uniform for that. That was my take on this whole thing, that person would get that uniform just like the rest of them. That wasn't in the discussion, because it was just assumed that was part of the deal.
The only difference being as a seasonal employees, most likely, what we're going to do is we'll probably end up buying them the minimum of what they need instead of, the seasonal won't get a uniform allowance. It's just turn in old pair of pants, you get a new pair of pants type of deal. We'll give them the initial issue, because they won't have to have the winter gear that the full-time person would have, and they won't have to have the number of uniforms that the full-time person will have to have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so back to the minutes of the Personnel Committee and the recommendations, except for the last item, which had no recommendation other than the board, so I think we'll address that in a separate issue.
And so the recommendation for the last issue is that we're going to set a date to meet as a committee of the whole per Lee and Brian's conversation.
Yeah, once we hire.
Confirm. Our common class firm.
Yeah. Okay, is there any other discussions on the minutes from the Personnel Employees Relation Committee? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. I would like to have a actual motion regarding Lee and Brian discussing what the requirements are, once we make a decision on the firm, and to come up with some dates that will work for the firm and the board. And I would have to say sooner than later would be better.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for Attorney Asselson and Coordinator Lee to put together possible committee of the whole dates pending the comp and class study, firm selection, to discuss compensation and classification of various positions throughout the county.
And leapfrogging,
And leapfrogging, yeah.
That'd be on next week's agenda.
On next week's agenda.
hopefully.
Hopefully.
It would
I'm not going to hold them to that because
It would depend on this afternoon.
Right.
Correct, yep. I was anticipating
So
we
they'll put an
would,
agenda together.
Yep.
Tentatively.
I was anticipating we would have that regardless, before this discussion happened, I was anticipating we would have an item similar to this on next week anyway,
So if we can address at that meeting, having the list of any potential leapfrogging ones that we have, that we can at least talk about them and bring them out to light. And I guess any other ones that,
Other issues.
other issues.
Yeah, we'll have an expert on board. And this will maybe outside their scope, but we'll find out how good of a company they are. And, okay. So, you made the motion. Did you second?
Second that, yeah, why not?
Okay, motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussions regarding this confusing but very important issue? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Technology Committee.
All right.
Commissioner Vetch.
The Technology Committee met on February 27th. I'm not going to list, there's about 15 different people present. First item discussed was Office 365. The Office 365 migration is 2/3 completed. Health and Human Services was done just the weekend prior to the 27th. Everything went, with the quoted words, relatively smooth. Just some minor issues. Other items, the remaining departments will be migrated over in the next 2 weeks. I think right now, since that meeting, we're about 90% completed, if not 100% by this point. Users will see some light changes in the upcoming weeks when Office 2016, part of 365 is rolled out. The really new tools will be the Skype for Business. Skype is being planned to roll out with the Office 365, or Office 2016 clients. There's a new incentive program here for the departments that complete the training. They will get to be uploaded first. So if you get 80% of your department completed in the training, you'll get the Office 2016 suite first, or you'll be in line first. So there's
Regarding that, we have agreed that we are going to lock Charlie in his room.
Yes.
To get all the studying done, because he's our weakest link, so.
You got that, Charlie?
We're the only department that's gonna have 100%.
Yep.
Okay.
Then we automatically get to be first.
Yep.
I just really want to have the Skype. The further discussion that was brought up is kind of with the migration and with the Office, the old 365. If you haven't noticed, your new email kind of has a picture that you can put in there and deciding whether we could or could not require or not require employees to put their photo into that banking, and who gets to see that was brought up.
Yep, and regarding that, it only works internally.
It does only work. They did clear that out, okay.
Yep, Adam emailed me to my business, and his picture did not show up.
Well, that's good, because that was kind of one of the biggest concerns was if, we don't want the general public, if you don't want to send pictures out, if you put your picture on your settings, I guess you want to call it. So the discussing was, but there's going to be some further discussion, but I think at this point it's leaning towards just voluntary for people that want to put their picture into it. It's a neat tool if you want to send out emails. You kind of put a face to a name. So, but otherwise the update was informational only on the Office 365. The second item discussed was the IT projects portfolio update. We discussed, and once again, Britta Holland brought together I guess kind of the same work group, our worksheet, and it's being continually developed. Basically, this sheet splits projects within the IT department into 3 different categories, from being strategic, discretionary, and technical compliance. Technical compliance issues are strictly IT-related items, updates, things of that nature. Strategic are kind of more of the all-encompassing enterprise, typically but not exclusively enterprise projects. And then the discretionary are kind of more of your minor departmental wants in sense. And they kind of basically took this sheet and in dividing them into these 3 categories, and they put together a very nice page on the SharePoint that you can kind of track your projects, and it kind of shows you what percentage of the project has been completed. The idea is eventually at some point to be able to put potential completion dates. They're not to that point yet, but it's an ongoing process. But hats off to IT. They have taken transparency in project portfolio to a new high. So I am very, very pleased. They're trying to be very, very transparent and very motivated on getting projects completed. With that was, again, the recommendation action was committee will work on prioritization of project lists, design project portfolio page for the technology committee to review.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Batch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any discussions? Anybody have any questions at all?
I think we talked to it at some point. We're going to hopefully have Britta actually kind of walk through the board at some point, the list, so you guys can kind of see. Because there's a lot of work that went into it, and I think it would give you the whole group an idea of where we were before to where we are now, and you'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to have a technology committee of the whole, you know, because you guys have been doing so many things.
Yeah, well, there will be definitely one with the ERP, which reminds me, Friday we are having a follow-up with Infotech. Are you going to be able to make that meeting? Okay, good. So after that, then there'll be a meeting of the whole set up.
Okay, good.
For further discussions regarding the ERP, and we could have the portfolio, and actually we may have somebody hired by that point too, as the portfolio manager, to be able to bring us through it.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hats off to the IT committee and everybody involved, because this was a big nut to crack here to try to get us modernized in Wright County. And as you can tell by the minutes and the complexities and the depth of it, that it wasn't an easy thing to do, but it's something we had to do. And now is the time to get it done, get it over with, help us move forward. And it's at this point in time, you probably won't see people that are enamored with efficiencies. That'll come in time when we get through the process and get everything done here. And I just applaud the effort of all those involved in getting this to this point here.
Well, there's been a lot of improvements that is behind the scenes that you just don't see.
Right.
But yeah, it's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got some really good people, and hopefully we can keep them, because we are having issues with hiring those people too. So it'll be good to have some more discussions regarding that. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Burrell, regarding the Ways and Means.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Ways and Means Committee met on February 27th, 2018, and presenting was Mr. Bill Stevens, our Environmental Health Supervisor. And what he was proposing was to have our solid waste management plan updated, and then specifically to hire an outside firm to do that management plan. The old plan has been in place since 2007, so it's over 10 years old now. And we do need to have a functional solid waste management plan in order to get what's called SCORE money. It's the Select Committee on Recycling and the Environment. And right now, the county receives a little over $377,000 a year of that SCORE money. A large share of it is given back to the cities and the townships for recycling programs. And the thing about this, updating the solids management plan, we would be able to use those SCORE funds so that we would not have to take anything out of the general revenue as far as to pay for it. And it just seemed like to have a firm that specializes in it. Bill said he did check around, and kind of the average that they were getting is around $14,000, a little over $14,000 to do it. And it's a product that will be good for, like our last one was over 10 years. So if this one lasts 10 years, it's kind of a small expense, and we talked about it. It's possible to do it in-house, but like Commissioner Hewsome said at the meeting, we probably would not end up with as good a product. So for that small of an expense, it would be worth it. So
Did we do the in-house one ourselves?
I think the last one possibly was.
Remember if he said that or not?
But I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I can't remember.
But anyway,
if he did.
so
It was, okay.
I guess I would move the minutes forward and also the recommendation. And the recommendation would be to authorize Stevens to send out a request for proposals if required by county policy. If not, Stevens may proceed with acquiring bids from a consultant to perform the solid waste management plan.
And, Mr. Chair, just as an addition, we did find out that he can authorize up to $25,000 without.
So we wouldn't have to.
So we wouldn't need to approve anything in that $14,000 range.
Clarification.
Well, the additional clarification I would like to have is who's going to make the decision on which consultant to hire? And will the board meet as a whole to lay the groundwork for this with the consultant? I mean, do we have suggestions that we would like to do going forward?
I just thought Bill would be able to do it.
Right.
I mean, we got to.
Essentially authorizing Bill, but if you want to.
We have a facility out there that I would think we'd want to have some input on how that you get utilized, especially if we have a consultant that can come up with, some ideas and suggestions, and it's up to the board.
That's fine. I'm okay with it. I just thought it was. Bill has more expertise than I do.
Yeah, it was basically the solid waste management plan. So I didn't really think of. There's Greg.
Do we have to?
You don't have to, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay.
I can sit down if you'd like. Mr. Chair, just to let the board know, the solid waste management plan, it's really a high-level plan that details, it kind of takes into account what our current waste needs are in the county, what the current tonnages are of recycling and municipal solid waste disposal, and then also looks at a geographical area of where that waste could go, given the current facilities. It would utilize the burner, I believe in Elk River, look at that, probably also look at the Herc in Minneapolis, and also what disposal capacity is in landfills, including in Wright County and also neighboring counties. So it's really more of a higher level, I think, than what I think you were insinuating at, Mr. Chair. I don't know how much involvement the county would really have, because it's really is more of a technical data analytics plan.
So it's not, it's not recommendation on
Drilling down into.
what else the county could do?
Not really.
Okay.
If there is, it'd be very minor.
Yeah.
It really is just more of a high-level plan that the MPCA utilizes also for their long-term planning that they have at the state.
Yeah, and that is a requirement from the MPCA that we have these solid waste plans, so.
That is correct.
Well, I still question it. Why do we have a plan if we don't utilize it, or a facility that's not being used to its most? Why is there a plan then?
I think that this
even
plan,
at a high level,
this plan would probably take into account any hazardous waste generation that the county has, and also mitigation of that. But as far as, I think as far as, once you get into it, you'll have some commenting period at the end of it. But I think at the front end, I don't think you need a committee of the whole.
Mr. Chair, just the old guy talking about historical context. The state requires counties to have these, and so even if a county doesn't have any landfills or facilities, they have to have a solid waste plan. Ours has, I think historically, talked about our facility in terms of household hazardous waste, problem materials, yard waste, which we deal with out there, I think still, storm waste, the limbs, trees and limbs and things. So there, that's a very small part of what Greg has referred to here. But certainly if there's thoughts about expanding what we do out there, that's kind of a separate discussion I see as, but could be a part of the same process. I mean, it's up to the board.
Okay, so in other words, that counties that don't have any solid waste handling, no landfills, still have to fill this out.
They do, because they have to go somewhere with their waste, so,
Yeah,
If they want
just
to
government.
score funding, they do it.
Right, right.
Yes.
I mean, they have to have a plan for where they're taking their waste.
Mr. Chair, they have to have that to get
Yeah.
score funding. They have to have a plan regardless whether you use it or not.
Exactly.
Oh,
we do
okay,
use-
that makes sense. We are talking government.
We do have to use it, but,
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I did have discussions with Bill Stevens a few years ago when their question is, what are we doing with the compost facility? Now it's because there was question whether we're going to sell it, keep it, whatever. And he was apprehensive to do much of anything until we made up our mind up here what we're going to do with that. And now we've decided we're going to keep it. We're going to do it now. It can go, all these things can go forward, because it was in flux what we were going to do with that for a while, but now the consensus has been, we already own it, we paid dearly for it, we're going to keep it, and that's how he can go forward with these. And I talks with him is that he has the opportunity to solicit and probably obtain more funding to help us expand our recycling program and everything else, so this is another step to help them, and I fully agree that we need to keep this going and do it even better than it is right now.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Cancel May 23rd committee meeting date and reschedule to May 30th.
Mr. Chair, seeing we have no board meeting on the 22nd, I would move that we cancel the committee meeting on the 23rd and move it to the 30th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hewson, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussions? County Coordinator, do you have any issues, concerns, discussions?
No, right now there's only one item on that committee date, which is a performance review. Not aware of any conflicts at this time.
Well, we got a couple months to go yet.
Yep. We will notify department heads so they can plan accordingly.
Okay. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Item C, schedule a committee of the whole meeting regarding the space study. Jamie has kind of requested a moment to talk about it. So I'm going to let her talk, and then Lee will have you have your discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Delighten. First of all, I'd like to kind of harken back to the Outlook 365, and it did go really smoothly. And I would like to just say, as a department head, even though we're not requiring people to put their pictures on their Outlook, I'd like to highly encourage my staff to do that. With losing the pictures on our staff directory and with being co-located, I get asked weekly by staff about pictures, so I think they will be motivated to put their pictures on there, but I would just like to, again, highly encourage staff and not just leave it kind of, too open, I guess.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure if I'm here late to the game as far as talking about some of my concerns with the Health Human Service Center, or premature because conversations are going to be going forward. But I did feel it was important just to come forward at this point as you're scheduling another meeting and let you know what some of my concerns are. And again, we spent a lot of time and money so far in the BKV study and looking at options and things like that as as things are getting underway for the move to the building of the Justice Center. So I'm here to hopefully just keep things moving. I'm not here to persuade you one way or the other regarding retrofitting this building or building a new building, but I did want to let you know a couple of things that, keep weighing on my mind, I guess. First of all, about 1/4 of our staff, our county staff, are located at the Human Service Center. And with that, but we only account for about 13% of the usable staff space in the county. So density is an issue. We're, I would say, pretty overpopulated over the last 20 years as far as that building. That building was a temporary structure, a temporary option. Back when we moved in there in 1999, reading some minutes a while ago, I believe it was said in the minutes that from the board at that time that it would be like a 5 to 8 year time spent in that building, and now we're going on 20 years.
And you believed them.
So, I think, and again, that 13% of the space versus 25% of the staff, that's not the new expanded space. That's our existing space in the county that we currently use. I also want to say what we don't have. We don't really have a safe space out there. I just want to think about if a tornado or other severe weather came through. We don't have a basement. We don't have a reinforced garage to go to. It is a structure that, in my mind, isn't that safe for our staff. We all would go to the northeast corner of the building. It's a steel building. I don't know how safe you would feel, and if you've been in that building when it's windy out, even when it's not severe weather, it's just windy, it sounds like things are rolling around all over the place up on the roof. So it's just a really noisy building, and I'm concerned about the safety aspect. We've also had active shooter scenarios out there and have been told that our long straightaway hallways and not any office spaces we can really lock people into is also a concern. It's a concern. We're not, I'm not fretting it at night, but I think it's something that we want to take into consideration as we look at space. What we also don't have is a secure facility, and while I appreciate the fact that building the Justice Center, we're looking at more security for the judges and the folks that will be occupying that space. Our staff work with those same people that are going to court for either, CD or other issues or child protection issues, some fairly disenfranchised people, and we bring those folks back into our secure area when they come to our building to meet with us for required meetings because we don't have any other space to meet with them. So I think security has always been kind of paramount concern out there. We don't have a presence of a sheriff in the building or anything like that, or a deputy. So for me, that continues to be a concern. And we see people, again, after hours for visitation issues, court-ordered visitation and things like that. We're doing some of that here in this building now, but it continues to happen in that building. Sorry, I do have a few more things to say. We don't have windows. I counted. We have a window in my office, a window in the lobby, and a window in the break room. We have 3 windows other than that. None of them are at street level. So that's 1 window for every 55 people. And you can basically just see the sky. So I think it's just really difficult. It's a morale breaker, especially when we hit January, February, and March to be in a place with no windows. And again, with that high density population in that building. The space issue is kind of harking back to that. We are currently having people double up, so we have like 2 people in a single space area. We have 3 people that we've retrofitted 2 cubes into fit 3 people. We got rid of our training lab, not because we wanted to, but because we needed the space. We basically just have 6 people in a perimeter around that room, again, with no windows. And then we are short of parking when we have a full day with guests coming for meetings and other types of things. We are currently spilling over to the Chinese parking lot next door. Right now that's an empty building and it hasn't posed a problem as far as I've heard. We're also parking on the street sometimes, and in the winter when the snow piles up, we suffer even a bigger lack of parking. So if we would be to remain there for much longer, I think that would definitely need to be addressed. And then there are mounting costs to maintain the Human Service Center, just due to the expectation that the building was going to be a short timer going into this budget year in late 2018 budget year. Some of the capital improvement funds were not allocated to the building. Right now on the short list is about $500,000 of items, but I could see that quickly spiraling up to about $1 million if we look at some of the longer term needed items that would be going on out there. So this is just my feeling that we've been warehoused in this building for almost 20 years. We've provided the services to our clients and citizens that they need and expect. Our social services area is recognized as one of the top 3 most cost-effective in the state, meaning we do more with less, and also meaning that we've delivered excellent services at a very low cost to our tax-paying citizens, of which most of our staff are part of. They contribute their time, effort, and their tax dollars to the county, and we have motivated staff who have bided their time without benefit of windows, safety, and space in the hopes that the commissioners would be the problem solvers that can take care of this. So that's where I'd like to leave it with you today. So my hope is that we can just kind of keep things moving along, understanding that we do have some real concerns about our building over at the Human Service Center. And notwithstanding all of that, we would still like to bring our staff under one roof, and that I think we've really sorely lacked some cohesiveness over the last 20 years by being co-located.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. Jamie, I agree. Okay, it was a temporary solution turned into a long-term because the immediate threat was neutralized and put under the rug. Let's move on. You'd have to agree in the last 5 years that this board has moved a lot faster than the decade before it.
I agree, and we had 2 issues that were dealt with very timely. We had a landslide in through our back of our building, and we had a leak in our building as well, and both of those were acted on very, very quickly.
And I'm fully aware of the deferred maintenance on that building. I've been through this even before Alan came on board. Went through everything that was there. We did put the $100,000 in that retaining wall. If you recall, I was the one that first had Steve Job because I thought it was moving, and sure as stuff, it was moving. We had to fix it. Okay, it's not my intention to keep you there any longer than have to. You understand that it's the courts are moving out, and that's where the space study comes in. And part of the space study we want to accomplish is what do we need for space requirements for the next 20 years? You know, and that was part of it. And everybody says, we put everything out there and then we got to dial it back to what we can actually afford and what can go in here. I don't want to keep it out there any longer than I have to, but you know what, the earliest we'd be able to move is the second or third quarter of 2020 because of the courts moving forward.
Right, absolutely.
The decision was to move in here. After they move out, it's still going to be 6 months of remodeling before you can get in here. You know, and even though it doesn't move fast enough, the wheels of government don't move fast enough, we are moving forward on this.
I am perfectly happy with that time frame. I have no concerns with that time frame. My concern would be if it was pushed back. You know, my understanding there's a good interest rate right now. We're in good financial standing. You know, I would just hope that we could not see any delays in moving forward with the plan, understanding that there's going to be the domino effect of everything that has to happen to get us there.
Correct, and to clarify that, that's part of why I pushed for the master space study in the first place, because cause and effect, reaction gets, a reaction. Okay, the courts are moving, now we bring them back in, they'll be at 100% capacity day one, how do we deal with this? And that's what triggered all this to go on, because we got to quit chasing our tail like the court back there, and do this methodically, how we're moving forward with this to accommodate not only today but in the future in the most cost-effective manner. I mean, when the highway building and got a little pushback on that at first, that accomplished 4 departments got long-term space needs covered with that building being in there. I mean, with very minimal, if any, impact to your taxpayers. I mean, these are things we need to keep doing. I mean, we know the court's going to have an impact. We know the administration is going to have some impact. But when you look at the whole picture with the growth of Wright County, these are the smart steps for us to take for the future to ensure that we stay at the lower tier of per capita spending.
Understood. Thank you.
Jamie.
You go ahead.
So in your funding, because this for the next committee of the whole, maybe you can find this information out. I know through your funding, you get funding for the employees. Do you get funded for any funding out of that for the space?
So what happens especially for social services, is what we consider, and I hope I'm saying this right, our case management hits when we would bill the state for our employees' time to take care of the client services, and that gets calculation based on that's pretty convoluted, but what it takes into account is our overhead costs. So to answer your question, yes, because that's part of the calculation. They look at overhead costs, salaries, and caseload size.
So if our square footage went up and our rent went up, then you could have,
That hit, what we would call a hit, would go up, I would say, fairly dramatically. Right now, as the 10th largest county, we're nowhere near the big boys as far as what they're bringing down for those costs. Their hits are like $1,023. Ours is about $700. So we are far below that. And again, not only overhead costs, but because our salaries sometimes lag behind some of the other counties, and our caseloads have been high. Now, we're trying to fix the caseload size by doing some contracting out of cases, but, so we'll see how that plays out. But the overhead costs definitely come into play.
so Commissioner Dowd, just to fill you up on that. So basically, it's tied to their overhead costs. So if their square footage price, if the square footage went up and their rent went up, then they would actually be able to get more money for their administrative costs.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate, all of your comments, Jamie, and I think, all of us on the board are ready to, move forward with this. So we've got a plan. So when courts...
Not me, though.
Well, we don't know what the plan is. You're ready for a plan, you just don't know what it is. So, but there's so many things to take into consideration about what we can do. And that's why, some of the information that we're gathering as far as the bonding and all that kind of thing is really going to determine what that plan is, whether we move everyone to this campus or where we go to a new campus. Those are the two big things. I mean, I feel that, I can personally assure you, hopefully, that, we're gonna be ready to roll on this.
Right, I hope so.
When the time comes. It's not.
We just don't know when that time's gonna come.
Right.
And that's my other concern.
Well, I mean, when this building is vacated, so we have the plan in place, because that's, like Commissioner Potter said, that's why we're doing this now, so we're ready to go.
And what I would also appreciate, I think, is that messaging, whatever the plan, how it gets developed and how it gets laid out, if either Coordinator Kelly or the commissioners could have a hand in messaging it. I kind of just feel sometimes like, I keep saying it's coming, it's good, but it'd be nice just to get more of a centralized message to our staff as far as what to expect or even what not to expect in the near future.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamie, I will make it a personal mission to go out there and talk to your staff again. I come out there every couple months to tell them what's going on, update them, and I think they like hearing that.
Yep.
And I agree with you that they need to hear this, that something's moving, something's going. I mean, we fixed the back door, retaining wall, let them know what that was going on. Just keep them informed what's going on there. I mean, I think it's good for morale and good for everything else that even though the temporary solution, you've been there for 17 years, we're moving towards it. I mean, the wheels of government don't move that fast.
I totally understand that. I'm just hoping they don't get stuck.
No, we don't plan on doing that. We didn't expend the money on the master space study to get stuck. We did that so we have a plan going forward. And one other item, Mr. Chair, Chief Deputy, you were there when we did that. When the Sheriff Support Building was first proposed, it was a $300,000 building. And Chief Deputy was, we worked on this. How many items do we need in that? And once we started placing the parts in there, the building was inadequate for what there. And by the time it got done, it was just north of $1 million for that Sheriff Support Building. But it also accounted for all the things that they need to do, plus all the updates in the law that came there. And that's the beauty of doing the master space study here is we're thinking about what's going on there.
We need to do it right.
We need to do it
I
correct.
agree. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other than I'm advocating to get us out of that building.
Oh, yeah. It's going to happen.
Okay.
We
And I
still have
think
room in the old jail.
I'm ready to take you up on that, I think.
Yeah.
Especially during the tornado season.
Yeah.
And I just feel like maybe some of this information was coming piecemeal, so I appreciate the opportunity just to kind of deliver these thoughts all together in one cohesive time. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, one more item.
Yep.
Commissioner Vetch had to go talk about how fast this meeting was going, and look at us now.
Hey, Charlie, you're filibustering
He
this
said
and you
slow
don't even
down.
have to talk. We may be still talking about this 6 years from now and you might be,
Well, I said the thing is, what we have to consider, and I know we will at the space study, we are going to have more and more people working from home, and it's going to save a lot of space, and we'll be able to share those offices, you know, a whole lot better when we do that. It's the trend, not just in county government, but in business right now, is the work from home.
Well, some businesses have pulled back on that too, though.
Yeah, if it's done right, though, it works, so.
Yeah, and yeah, there's just a lot of things to consider.
Yeah.
So how far out do we want to go for this committee of the whole?
Well,
Is Kimmel coming to this one? Are we going to talk about funding? Or is that going to be part of the strategic planning?
well, relative to this meeting, I'm kind of reacting to the board. I would definitely echo Jamie's comments of the desire to keep this moving forward. If it's desire to have Ellers, Bruce Kimmel there, we can certainly make that happen. I just
I don't think there's a
don't
need
know
for
that we
that.
had a lot of direction coming out of the 22nd meeting other than to schedule another meeting. I know there was some talk about some legislation that may be moving through this session with the state and how that may impact us. So I guess I'm kind of reacting to the board and what information you feel is additional to help you make a decision in developing this plan. BKV has provided what I believe to be the final plan.
Exactly.
I don't believe there's any additional information at this time requested from Mr. Schwartzman. If there is, we can certainly gather that.
Personally, I think we should just have a meeting, just the board, and whoever else, without Bruce Kimmel, so that we can hash it out and then figure out what we would really like to see from Champagne Bruce. Instead of just bantering back and forth, you know, let's come up with a consensus on what we want to see.
Well, I always
and
look
options.
at item C and D kind of are two in the same in the fact that a lot of what we make a decision as far as the space study has to do with the strategic planning in terms of how does all this stuff impact the tax statement, and I think that's what a lot of us are all struggling with. So, I mean, I look at those two meetings are all in one.
Well, strategic planning, I think, on this is a little bit different.
Well, because the strategic planning is what we talked about, bringing back the spreadsheet and plugging in all the numbers into it, correct?
Well, that could be, there's many things under strategic planning. Specifically, when I put item D on there, that was not what I had thought.
Okay.
But certainly in our strategic plan, providing a good work environment and a good work environment for people to work in and to be good financial stewards are two of the things that are in our financial plan. So
Right.
long answer to your short question is it all comes together.
I had asked Lee to put this on.
Okay,
It was more for discussion regarding,
retention.
well, regarding Lee himself, on how much more or less we want him to be doing. To take some load off of us so that we can concentrate on these higher
Okay.
level questions. So
then C would be, then in C, can we go back to bringing that spreadsheet in it and bringing some of those tax impact statements with like a $250,000 house, if we do that as part of the space study and do it without any of the Bruces there, just?
I think that might be wise. I guess my feeling at this time is we've certainly gotten a lot of scenarios thrown out there that Bruce has been sending back and forth to Bob, myself, and board members off and on. But I think we need to kind of pull together what our plan is, and that good tool might be to take that spreadsheet we talked about. I believe it was on February 12th.
yeah, and I don't like the idea of the $250,000 home.
I don't know, I'm just.
I like the reality. You're welcome to use my businesses and my house, you know, and Charlie's land too, I believe, is what they've used in the past, and, you know, I don't know if you have a
It's
concern
nice
with
to get a
that.
cross-section of
But
classes.
real life scenario, not this high level
But I mean,
theoretically.
yeah, but it's nice to get, you know,
If your
some
name is
home
John
values
Anderson
too,
from
and
Elm
what,
Street, Anytown, USA, it is relevant.
Yes, you're right, absolutely, absolutely.
And that's fine too, so.
So again, I would echo Jamie's sentiment that just want to see this keep moving, specifically prior to budgets. I think we all agree at some point, we'll probably have a campus north of town. It's just that time frame of when in the financials. But, you know, whatever decision is made on that time frame is going to impact some of the things relative to the building coming into budgets that are either in or out. So for the sake of helping us for budget 2019 planning, I'd like to keep it moving here in spring.
I know the bill that we were talking about, if it doesn't make it out of committee by, was it the 22nd, it's dead?
I'm not sure on that.
I know there's the death date for out of committee.
First deadline, second deadline.
Yeah, I think it's the 22nd of March.
That's the first deadline.
That's the first deadline, so that's right. If we meet after that, then at least we'd have an idea where that thing sits, at least. But
Which one is that regarding?
that's regarding the defunding of the
plant.
power plant by
Power
310 million.
Is that going to happen this month?
Well, it's in committee right now.
Okay.
So if it doesn't make it out of committee by, don't quote me on it, I think it's the 22nd, it's dead.
That's the
Okay.
first deadline, but
Yeah.
if it
Right.
doesn't make it out of committee in the first deadline, more than likely it's not gonna get any farther than
Any
that.
further than that, so.
So how about the 27th? I know it's 3 weeks away, but
Yeah,
that way,
27th at 1 o'clock?
yeah, we would have because we do have a closed session in the morning, but it will give us a better idea than where that's headed.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a space study committee of the whole for March 27th at 1 o'clock.
I'll second that.
1 second here.
27th, yep.
Okay.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston, regarding having a meeting on the 27th at 1:30 in the afternoon, or 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I assume this room?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair has had a comment. At the end of the last meeting with Bruce Kimmel, when he was there, he was going to give us another scenario with massaging some of those numbers to keep under that magical $8 million annual payment for us, because we had some of that out there, and when the comment is there any scenarios out there for under $8 million, he was going to do that for us.
You mean under 9? I don't think.
Under 9, maybe 9.
I said if we're gonna see under 8, that's gonna be awesome.
Under 9, excuse me, I stand
Yeah, we're
corrected,
looking at 9.
that is under 9. So I will remind Bob and see if we can get that information to us. I don't think it'll take that much for him to get that, but we've got the other charts. If we can get that to see, because some of those numbers, when they're north of 10 million, and then especially Commissioner Vetch, his hair was standing on end like it is now because of all the money being spent. But it's just a matter of getting enough information for us to make good decisions.
Yeah, and then hopefully somebody will get a crystal ball out and
Yeah.
Yes.
let us know what's going to happen.
Are we gonna have a bunch of new homes? Is the economy gonna collapse? Come on, get that crystal ball for me.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Commissioner Vetch, you're in charge of the crystal ball committee.
Is there any further discussions?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Alan, sorry I didn't ask for your input. Did you have any? You just wanted to see it moving forward?
Yeah, that's kind of
Also-
basic, just keep it moving forward and wanted to make sure that you weren't looking for anything else from BKV or Camellers. They
We-
provided everything final, I think, kind of what we asked, so.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're looking for. But I do appreciate you providing all of us with the things that are going to require
Right.
with this building and the other building,
Yeah,
no
thank
matter
you.
what we do, so that at least we can put those numbers into the equation too.
Yeah, I think to Lee's point, just to kind of get us met before budget cycle really gets going, so we can decide what's going in as a requested capital improvement or not, will be really helpful to
Yeah.
determine kind of how that flow goes,
Yeah,
so.
that definitely helps us. Thank you.
All right, yep, thanks.
Thank you, Alan.
Sorry, I should have had him come over here, but,
Rookie.
yeah, I was never very good at this sort of stuff.
Item D.
All right, schedule committee of the whole meeting, strategic planning. So at this point, we can come up with a date, but also what you would like to have discussions with. The question I had, or what I had asked Lee to put on here was regarding him and,
Great job.
yeah, his job, how we're planning on doing different things, what we want him to do, what we don't want him to do, why we want him to do it, why we don't, if we want him, all those sort of things.
Right.
If we want to get rid of him and hire somebody else, just kidding.
Professional jurist, John.
But that's part of your job, is never knowing if you're going to have a job tomorrow.
Any given Tuesday.
Given
So,
Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, does, would 26 work for everyone, since we don't have HHS now on the afternoon? Or we could have it in the
We
morning,
could.
too.
What about the
We
20th?
could have it in the morning.
26th, I couldn't, I'm down Transportation Alliance
Okay.
Board meeting.
What about the 20th, after the board meeting? I don't have anything on my calendar.
We could do that.
When was,
Go afternoon.
boy and girl is April 17th. I'm sorry?
I'd have to go the afternoon, 1 o'clock or later.
Okay, and I
Me
have
on the
library
20th.
board say 5 o'clock, so whatever we do would have to get,
It's-
end in time for me to get to that.
Yeah,
We're not going to have a 3-hour meeting.
No, would be okay there.
20th at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set the strategic planning meeting for 1 PM on March 20th.
With your motion, would you please include any agenda items that you want to see, or anybody else at the board?
Okay.
Other than, like I said, just regarding Lee, if there's other things you want to
Well,
have discussed about, that's fine.
Well, Mr. Chair, it wouldn't hurt to review the strategic plan in general that we've got.
That's what I was
and-
gonna say. I think it'd be beneficial just to talk about some of the successes that we've had since the initial plan was developed, things that have been completed, kind of where we're at, and then
Okay.
further meetings, we can discuss additional action for 2018.
All right.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch, for meeting of the whole on Tuesday the 20th at 1 PM. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Alrighty. Advisory Committee, Advisory Board updates. So I started with Charlie last week, and he didn't have anything, so do you have anything this time, Charlie?
I would have had Fair Board, but they canceled last night. It's rescheduled for next week, so no, I do not have anything.
Want to say anything about the conference, or no?
Oh, just the AMC, you mean?
Yeah.
You guys can, but I thought it was good. It was the Minnesota Rural Caucus. That was the first time I ever met with them live. We did a telecommunication before, and it was actually really good. You know how we had some of our state reps came out here? They had 9 representatives, so we really got some exposure that way to the representatives, so it was pretty good. But, yeah, nothing really big out of that, though. So, okay.
Yeah, it was, I like the way that they structured the AMC with kind of joining a couple of counties together to go talk to our shared representatives. That worked out nicely. And aside from the fact that we're trying to get from one building to the next in a 15-minute time frame, so we had to split up, but that worked out nicely. And actually, Commissioner Vetch and I ended up at the same committee meeting because he's on general government, and I'm on public safety, so they combined those 2 meetings. And so I got to hear, well, it was a good discussion on the MNLARs, and we'll figure out what's going to happen on that and the Real ID coming up. And if you wanted to go over any of that, the opportunity zones, which was a little different. And then we had also emergency management and a presentation by emergency managers and really their role in crisis and different things that happen. So that was I thought a nice overview. And then just I had mentioned the Skywarn last week, and we did get the information about the Skywarn. So it's the National Weather Service Skywarn Spotter Training. So if any of you people out there are interested, it's going to be on Tuesday, March 27th. The first class is at 1:30 p.m. The second class is at 6:30 p.m. right here at the Government Center. So they're free. It's about a 2.5-hour class. And you can teach the potential spotters about severe storm structure and how to identify cloud features. And so if you need any more information, you can contact Steve Berg at 763-684-2364.
And that info is also on the county website. And actually, one group of people that should really actually do this, because I used to be one, is people that do referee outside in the summer programs. Because there's a lot of times when there's a threat of lightning, making that correct decision before somebody gets hurt is good.
Yeah, good point. That's it?
That's it? Okay. Yeah, I agree that it was nice to have, regarding, conversations with our representatives and that sort of stuff. And we met last week at Bertram Lake, and by the first week in April, we should have some preliminary plans of the layout of campground area, very high-level plans, but with the consultant. We'll bring those back for everybody to get a chance to look at, too. But yeah, I thought it was fun at the state capitol talking to our representatives and them being open and honest. I heard a lot of honesties about, here's what the committees I'm on and how we can help. If you have this issue, then you need to go talk to this senator or this representative. So they were, I don't know, I thought it was
Yeah,
very
it was a good day.
Hopefully, they're going to be able to accomplish something and work together, the Republicans and Democrats, to get things done for the better of the state. That's just my wishful thinking. That's it.
I'll just continue a little bit on the Bertram. So we had the discussion more in detail as to what the timeline for Laux will be for getting it. The entire deliverables should be done by November. We should have the entire project designed out by that time. Soil and water, Alicia came out and kind of talked about aquatic invasive species and the watershed in the area and what some of the risks are or could be to the Bertram Chain of Lakes. That was per the request of the board. Also, they have a lot of really fun summer programs this summer coming out. One new one that's really interesting is a family camp out. Will be June 22nd, 23rd. Hasn't been done in the county, so.
Yeah, and that's right. That is a very neat thing.
Very neat, very interesting.
You won't have to have anything.
Yeah,
the
tents and everything, so.
Really?
Yep.
So if you've never camped before and it's something you want or you did as a kid and you want your kids to experience the same enjoyment with mosquitoes that you did as a kid, this will be your opportunity.
It's somebody that wants to try camping out. This is a good way to get your feet wet without having to invest a lot of money. And so registration is going to be done through the Parks Department, so keep your eyes open for that one. Other than that, we had a little bit of a conversation with the city of Monticello, and WSB is doing the design layout for their athletic fields, phase 1. Also, we were brought up that the city has hired an art consultant for all their park system, Sue Seeger, which they're really excited about, and I think it's a very nice move to try and tie arts into their parks to even the next level. So, with that, other than that, AMC was great. I enjoyed it. The 4-H presentations at the final one were really interesting, really neat. I always love to see what these different 4-H programs at the high level are really doing across the state.
And just as a side note, camping has really been coming back, and it's increasing among the younger people. So it's cool that they can go out, they're having their friends start camping again, so they can go and see what it's like and maybe join the force.
You know, one advantage too out there at Bertram, where they're planning on doing this, is that it's a lot like going up the Boundary Waters without the long drive. It doesn't have as many rocks. And,
yeah, true.
But still, there's a lot of area to explore, and going in between all those different lakes. So it's a neat place.
That's all I have for.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, with AMC, we got good feedback on how we set that up this year with meeting our legislators and that was a AMC Board of Directors, we approved the expenditure with Lockridge Grindle, Leslie Rosedal to help set these up for the different counties to get going. So hats off to them for doing this. We're trying to do something a little different, and we think it's much better. I mean, and some people says, well, can we have the platform committee before that? And the idea of the follow-up meeting was we'd done that in December. We gave a yellow sheet out with the overview of everything, and we felt that was, if you took that yellow sheet with you, you'd refresh your memory from December. Wasn't that long before. So that was
for yourself.
I know a lot
well,
happens.
anyway, so that's how it was, because we pared down the platform this year because of bonding year and midterms or elections and everything else going on. The other thing is I was able to get, with the help of Emily Murray, is got the Nancy Daubenberger and Patrick Weideman. Daubenberger is in charge of haying and mowing in the ditches, and I went to the listening session up in St. Cloud for that, and that was a big issue on how to deal with that. The other one was the Quarters of Commerce program. In the Quarters of Commerce program, this round here, there was 160 applications for this round of funding. Usually they have less than 100, and a lot of them are duplicates and some there. It needs all the supporting documentation and resolutions and that. They had a few that had the entities within there that were against it because the public could enter projects on this too, because that was part of the whole thing is, and I applaud Patrick and his staff for accommodating and maneuvering through some of the objections of Met Council and how this thing did. The regional balance they were mad at. They want to split the scoring or the money numbers in there. So it was kind of masterful to walk through that and get, so they walked away, and for at least this round here, it's still going to be it's a soft 50-50. Keep in mind, it's not a hard 50, because the first round was a soft because it was the Metro got the project from Rogers to St. Michael, but it was counted against outstate. And some of those things where they cross jurisdictional lines, you have to make it make sense. Chisago was part of the Metro for this round of funding just because some of the projects are just Chisago County, and it was a lot simpler to do it that way than have it out. A lot of different discussions there, but it was well received by the people there, and the more questions on how the Quarters of Commerce works in that, and I was happy with the presentation that we got there, and Nancy Daubenberger with the haying and mowing. I mean, lots of questions from all the listening sessions around, and it was really good information for those that were involved. And I went up to the St. Cloud one because Charlie couldn't make it that one time for that one up in St. Cloud. That was last fall, and it definitely was interesting to see different perspectives and how they go about this, and they were reminded that the MnDOT is not the enforcement arm of anything, so they're not going to write you a ticket. But other than that, Mr. Chair, I thought that conference went real well, and I was pleased with it.
Do you know when the Quarters of Commerce, the decision will be made? Because it hasn't been made yet, has it?
The scoring process is starting now.
Oh, it just started?
I believe it'll be April 5th-ish, around there is where they'll announce the project. So it's April, I want to say April 5th,
sometime in April.
Sometime in April.
And that's for this summer? Or for 2019?
I'm not sure if they'll be able to start anything this year or next year. Depends on the project, depends on a lot of things.
Next year, since it's a full session at the House and Senate, they start in January?
Mm-hmm.
It should be earlier, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Do we want to start thinking about inviting them here in...
I think
December's tough, but...
No, I think...
It's got to be early January.
I think even October, or when
It could be.
we could look at an earlier date because...
Well, the problem with
November.
October is that...
If they don't get reelected or something.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
know.
right,
You'd have to
that's
do
true.
late, you'd have to go just
We'd have to go
prior
November.
to Thanksgiving.
Either that or...
Mid-November.
In November, or that first week in January, maybe. Again, I don't remember when they start.
About the third week in January.
Is it the third week in January?
I think
You know, so maybe we could do it that first week or something.
I think they're starting to get used to the counties having them before them and talk with now, because quite a few counties actually did it for the first time ever. And I think the legislators were happy to do it because then they got straight from us what they're looking for.
Yeah, it was really nice. It made it easier when we came to meet with them at the Capitol because we'd already had some discussions and then they got more
Yeah, they
input
had-
since
and-
then. And
right.
yeah, so it worked out really nicely.
I thought so.
The beauty of this one is we didn't inform them about the escape hatch until after the meeting.
Yeah. So, I don't know, it's just something to put on our radar to,
Yeah.
we don't want to wait till the last minute.
No.
So, something to think about that maybe, once we find out exactly when they start, that maybe we should just plan on doing it that first or at the very latest, the second week of January. Or right around Thanksgiving too, because again, the decision will be made who will be out there representing us.
Right. The two of us too.
Well, just more to talk about. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, whether or not, you're right.
You guys can decide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right, whether or not we will be on here again. Thanks for reminding me.
Commissioners, just on the legislative priorities discussion went really well, and then the Journal Press picked it up, and then the Star Tribune picked up that article, so we got a lot of page place with that one, so I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Good for human services.
Yep, yes.
I don't know if you guys had a chance, but I forwarded you a link regarding an article about DMV nationally.
Yes.
No longer the laughing stock. Did any of you have a chance to look at that?
I didn't open it yet, but yeah.
It's a discussion about how all these other states have improved their software and have streamlined things to improve quality and all that sort of stuff. And there was nowhere a discussion about MNLARS and how badly it's gone in Minnesota. But they were talking about kudos to all these other states where it, according to them, it went off without a hitch, so.
Yeah, perhaps we need to just not try to reinvent the wheel.
No, why do that? All right. County Coordinator Kelly, do you have anything that you want to add to anything?
Well, how many minutes do you want?
Pardon?
How many minutes do you want?
I'll give you
I can kind of be brief, but as you alluded to in the beginning part of the meeting, most of my last 2 weeks was spent during jury duty. Can't even talk. I don't know how I made it through. So that was an interesting process over at Stearns County.
Did they elect you chair of the?
I was the jury foreman, yes.
Jury
in that
foreman?
case. Yes, interesting experience. So also interesting spending some time in the back end of Stearns County's courts building and some of their other facilities. So interesting to see how it's laid out and very similar in concepts to a lot of the designs we implemented in our new facility. So kind of reinforced we're on the same track. So I guess a couple things that might be of interest to the public are digital signage boards for navigation when you come into the government center. We started install on those yesterday, so that'll hopefully assist people in when they get here. Sometimes people get lost on where to go because our signage hasn't been that great. So
Now these will be touchscreens, interactive?
the one on the south end of the lobby will be the touchscreen interactive, correct?
Nice.
So it'll give you a path of where you go for different services within the building.
Cool.
So.
And when are you hoping that they'll be done?
Hoping this week. I know there was one part we were waiting for that might be a little bit of a delay, but hoping this week to finish the install, so. And,
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
What else you have?
We're currently, we got proposals for janitorial services, came back on the 28th February. We're currently interviewing all those different firms and looking to come to the board with a recommendation later in the month for those services. Our assistant HR director posting closed on the 22nd. We'll be doing interviews next week.
How many do you have?
We had 1,248 page views, 45 applications, and I believe right now we have 6 people signed up to interview. So
That's great.
so we were very happy with the response we got. We did also post this week our communication specialist position that was approved for the 2018 budget. So hopefully we'll have as good a response on that one as well. So
Posted then, or?
yes, that was
That's
posted
good.
yesterday. So we'll have that open for a couple weeks. Look to interview in April.
Yeah, hopefully you're gonna find a great candidate for that position.
So
That way none of us have to talk anymore.
Was that being misquoted?
You misquoted.
We're talking about it.
Where's the meeting at this afternoon?
I think we had it for this room, if I recall.
I didn't remember seeing it on there. And I don't remember who. Actually, we didn't know who we'd be interviewing first either. We
Yeah.
never received
What's the
it.
order?
that.
I'll tell them the scope.
The order and the time.
Yeah.
And location.
We
Well, we
just-
know the time.
In the boardroom was the location. Didn't add that into my email. Let me find the agenda here for that
Company
one.
A, then Company B, and then Company C.
Correct.
It's like a guessing game. We have to decide by their conversation which company they are.
I know Sean had a
Prizes if you
list. I
get it right.
apologize. I didn't put it in my, my calendar, the order here, so.
Are we,
And I would
are we
urge,
saying like 1, 1:30, 2, or how are we doing?
I would think it was
They're
almost,
all an hour apart and we have
Yeah, we
45
provided them with an hour each.
Okay.
does anybody have to leave this afternoon? Okay, so we can hang out and have a discussion on who we'd like to work with on this.
After, like, we plan to go till
After
4,
4?
right?
Or,
Yeah.
but then have another half hour after that, or 15, 20
1
minutes
to
to
2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4.
4 to 4:30 just to discuss and wrap it up what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we should be able to wrap it up in 15 minutes.
I would think so. Because we're gonna have 15
We're
minutes.
gonna have 15 minutes between each one.
Correct. Yep, we have Springstead at 1 o'clock, 45 minutes approximately, then Keystone at 2 o'clock, and Bjorkland at 3 o'clock.
Lee said he's gonna lock the door till we make a decision, so.
Yeah.
It
So
worked
that's-
for jury duty, so I may implement the same thing here.
Mark, I do
yeah.
have to leave at 4, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll be done at 3:45, so we should be able to wrap it up at 4.
I was hoping it's just that easy to make, right?
Yep.
Okay, now that the meeting's over and our HR director showed up, is there something you have that you wanted to talk about?
No, sir, this is something to provide to you after.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else, we are adjourned at 10:45.
Yeah.